What do you think is the difference between fashion and style? And can we learn this style if we don't have style?
No, I'm totally not. I mean, style is really something that comes from within, just it's a form of expression, you express yourself. Fashion, you really apply. I mean, you don't, it's funny, my mother and my father were so different. I started seeing that between them. My father put on anything, it didn't matter what it was, it looked like him. You wouldn't notice what it was, but it looked like him. My mother, no one particular style, she loved it all. She loved fashion. Her closet, you couldn't tell what she was thinking. She loved clothes.
But she knew how to master it. That's
Yes.
it. Fashion could be a form of disguise and camouflage. She used it very well. So it's almost like changing roles daily. She was very good at that. And her dad, I think, was very tied, psychologically, was very tied to not losing himself. So clothes were secondary.
Do you feel you have a very unique style? Are you more like your father or your mother?
I think I'm more like my father.
I think so too.
Yeah.
And there's you have
Because
a very distinctive look.
Yes, but I need to change, or I like to change on a constant, like every 2 minutes.
As
You should see my suit, I have shoes lined up.
Oh, it's not that she is. Fashion goes too slow for her. In fact, you know, one day it's on big volume, the next day it's whoop, and the next day it's terror, the next day it's gypsy.
You look at my collection, that's why it's not about one thing. I like to serve you a whole meal. That's why fashion shows have become for me too narrow, because you have to go to so many shows, and it's kind of hard. I would have to then give you one message so that you remember. I can no longer show you my background. I can no longer show you my whole poem. I have to give you one thing that you can take with you. That's why I stopped doing shows, because I felt, it's like my tongue is being cut, you know. And
there's something wrong with not doing a show. I mean, I think that you
well,
still
I
get
survived it, interestingly enough. I mean, it's something that...
There's there's other designers that have chosen
there's
not
also-
to have it.
Sure, there's no different others.
And are still legendary like you.
Well, in fact, we showed, and I love shows. Don't get me wrong. Every time you see a parade of women coming at you dressed, that feeds you. It really does. And I showed from, 84, almost to 98.
It's almost
It was almost
15 years
15 years.
non-stop.
Even Paris. We did Paris for 2 years.
Also,
So Paris, New York, I mean, on our backs, literally.
but that's missing a season, yeah. But there comes a point where Isabel's like, you know what, it's getting so fast and it's such a comparative.
The business was changing.
Yeah.
I mean, the structure of fashion shows was changing. And it wasn't any longer intimate, so I realized, okay, wait a minute, I can't compete on that level because I don't have to finance it, first of all. And it also became much more about the showman.
The show.
Yeah.
Which is okay, that's another form of
Which
showmanship.
is great. But it takes a lot of investment. And it's about the front row, who's there.
Do you think that you would ever consider having a show?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So you haven't said no to
Oh,
shows?
no. It is my circumstance. Absolutely my circumstance. That it takes, I mean, the industry has changed.
I love this quote too from your book. We all participate in fashion, whether we sew it, champion it, pretend to ignore it, or detest it. It's just a fact. I mean,
Yes. I love when people say, I'm so not into fashion. Especially men.
Yeah.
They don't, no, you don't get up in the morning and think. Even to think that I'm wearing something that I'm not thinking about, of course. You've chosen that, you've left it on your bed and put it back on because you're comfortable in that. That is fashion.
Of course, and people think it's very superficial and it's very, superficial.
This
but
is
it
the
isn't.
first thing we communicate with. This is so important. I mean, my mother always talked about shoes and how people size people up, literally from their feet up. So she would always say, did you clean your shoes? She'd always want to make sure that the shoes were.
Oh my God.
They were it's funny. I mean, you remember my mom used to always talk about shoes and how important that was.
So this chapter about love and time, you write about how you need time to create, you need time for things to happen. That yes, sometimes we get all, especially designers, get very nervous about doing things in a hurry, about accelerating the process. But what you really need is that time to create and inspire. And
many times, if you focus and if you take your time, then you can do, once it's time to act, I'm like a spider like this. I can just get it done. Whether you want to, you don't even know it's happening. But I do first stand back. Even as a child, everybody, I was very active. But when it came to having a group conversation, I was always quiet. I was always taking in.
Isabel's an observer. She loves to observe, and then when she acts, it's so fast you don't know what to do. But she stands back, and it's almost like a hiding tiger. She's behind this forest, and when she strikes, it's kind of amazing what she does, just like that. It blows my mind. And meanwhile, I'm flipping out because a fabric has arrived, but she hasn't touched it, she hasn't done anything with it. I'm like, what do you want?
It's talking to
But
the
do you think it's normal to expect designers nowadays to produce so many collections with, in seasons that are getting shorter and shorter?
They have teams. They have teams.
Well, yes, but there are some that are very young designers or that don't have big teams. How do you compete with the big teams when it's only
shouldn't? I mean, that's where I find the fashion industry should have that tolerance to let also a young designer or a startup develop. Because it's too quick. It's too fast for you to say what you really have to say, or what you don't have enough in you. You should say it slower so that it really becomes part of you and it becomes part of your identity. It won't just roll off of you. It'll stay with you.
And it's okay, yes, and it's okay if you take it slower because
Sure, it's necessary.
Yes.
it's going to have a greater meaning.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And even, I do think that even when designers that have all these big teams, something is happening. They're lacking because it's just too much.
Sure, well, there's always a danger that fashion becomes just merchandise, that there's no soul behind it, right? But even in the couture, where you present 150 things, there was always 15 true designs, and then everything else comes from those 15 real new pieces of architecture. And that's enough to be a whole collection, but you have to get to those 10, 15 real ideas. Then your team can develop it,
Have you ever thought about teaching? Both of you, or not teaching, but mentoring.
No, we work with students a lot. We've been doing it for maybe 50. We work with Otis.
Sure, but we're very find your own road because that's just it.
What about how you forget?
Yeah, everybody has to find their own way, their own method, their own road, and their own vision. No matter what we say, we can just encourage you. So in that way, we would be kind of like, kind of like wayward teachers because we're encouraging you to do your own thing. But
I mean, we have a lot of students that work in our studio, interns, and then we go to schools and we work on projects. And I think I do like it. I like that experience of coming in and working with them. And what I always notice is that you look at their sketching and you look at the garments, it has nothing to do one with the other. And the thing that I always look at just this, because I'm looking at a garment with a flat piece of paper that says so much. And all of a sudden when it comes time to do it, three-dimensional, they either have chosen their own fabric because they don't have the tactile experience of sew it, so you know the weight and the gravity.
So what advice would you give that young person?
To get intimate with fashion, to get intimate with the make. I'm a big believer in making because you can evolve your idea. You'll always come up with seamstresses or pattern makers that will tell you this can't be done.
Right, but if you know,
you can. And I've been told many times, I don't really know.
And it's okay to take baby steps. Don't tackle a giant thing first. Tackle the hem and put it in the zipper and put it in the pocket and eventually you're building this thing. So it's okay to take baby steps. You don't have to do.
Because the garment actually, the longer something hangs, you become aware of the choice of fabric that you made and how the gravity is affecting the design. Because sometimes you pick the wrong fabric and it totally turns into something you didn't imagine.
Did you have any mentors when you were?
The art, the work of the people I restored. Those are my mentors.
Very powerful.
Their language spoke to me.
And do you like to mentor designers now? Or at least guide them? What would that mean?
I don't know.
Really, you have a lot of interns that work with you.
Yeah, and you know what I do? I put them to work with the seamstresses. They are the assistant of the seamstress. They are there. They get very personal with the garments. And then when they're done, I tell them to go to the store and say, go look at your work hanging in the store. Because they were working on them. And they get to experience A to B to C. What it was to see this being made and totally a piece of liquid on the table, to sewing it and start shaping it, to all of a sudden seeing it in the store with a price tag that a woman has to pay. And they get very inspired. I think that experience I know that I give students.
That's very valuable. I think they need to see how the dots connect, how you connect the dots, and that's how it works, It's very important.
And in a way, I think that some students don't think that they have to do the book. That they don't have to learn the ABCs, that you can actually fast forward that process,
Right.
but you can't.
Yeah, no, you can't.
You'll be another, I mean, there's so many types of designers and we're successful in so many different ways that I don't dare say that one way is better than the other. It's just different. For me, this was the only way because I wasn't a good communicator. I didn't have the financing or I didn't have the connections. So what could I possibly do other than do what I do? And it spoke for itself. And in the beginning of my career, did I say anything? I never spoke. I never spoke about my work. It's
So
like,
you say in your book that you were very, very shy.
we both actually.
Yeah, we both were shy. But I think
That's
our
what
father's
I
not
know.
No, our father's not shy. That's why you want to put your energy into your work, and your work does speak for you. You see the soul of the person in an art, with an art, right? In an art piece.
Yeah.
That's the thing. You're looking right into someone's soul when you look at their work.
That's why it's important to spend time with something because if you do, it becomes part of what you are, part of what you're saying, your image is there, and that communicates. People feel that.
Sure, that's
People feel
it's
it.
very
Yes.
powerful. It's very powerful.
What designers inspired you? And what designers do you admire today? Their work. Or from the past, or from today. Or some of us.
Leonardo, incredible. Andre, Balenciaga. See, it's funny because I have a very dual, I love structure and I love joy. I'm not one type of designer. I really like to experiment because again, it's all form, it's all sculpture. So I think every designer that has a body of work that you can say this belongs to this person is inspiring. The minute you study it, you find a path that maybe inspires you to do something. And in business nowadays, designers, big mega business, that's quite amazing. I'd love to see what I can do with that. What would I do with a huge business?